The Milwaukee Bucks are now 2-8. Recently, they lost to the Boston Celtics. I believe it was just like on a Sunday, a day or two ago. And it just got me thinking because their record has been really terrible this year. They are 2-8, which is a terrible start to begin with. That means they're only winning 20% of their games. So that's god awful. And it's very surprising because even though the Bucks are not as talented as they were in previous years, you would assume they would still be playing 500 basketball because they have Giannis and Antetokounmpo, who is arguably a top 5 player in this league. And when you look at his numbers this year, I believe they've been great. Let me pull them up. He's having another MVP-like season when you look at his averages. It is 31.6 points per game, 12.8 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 60% from the field overall. Granted, his three-point shooting is terrible, but that's not surprising. So this guy has been very efficient. He's dominating. These are MVP numbers, but his team is still not winning games. They're still losing at a high rate, and you just wonder what's going on here. Why isn't Giannis able to lead them to at least a 500 record? Granted, you look at this roster and it's been bruised, it's been battered. Chris Middleton, I believe, still hasn't played a game yet, so they're really missing him right now. And you just look at Damian Lillard, I would say he's getting exploited on defense. He's putting up similar career numbers. Granted, his three-point percentage has been a little bit down compared to previous years, but he's scoring at the normal rate he normally does. But I think his defense is getting exposed this year more so than any other previous year. The Bucks don't have any help defenders that can help cover for his terrible defense. So I believe that's getting exploited. But I think another major reason the Bucks are struggling is Brook Lopez looks like he's taking a step back and he's regressed, which is not a good sign if you're a Bucks fan, especially at his age. He's 36 years old now. So when you start regressing at that age, there's no coming back from it. I would suspect that he's on the verge of probably being washed up pretty soon. This season, his numbers are not good when you look at the efficiency. 9 points on 39% overall from the field, which is horrible for a big man. 27 from 3, which is very bad. That shows there's something wrong going into his game, because normally the last few years he's been a good three-point shooter for his position, but this year for it to fall off that much, that is really, really bad. And I would assume his defense hasn't been on the same level it's been in previous years. He's dropped off, but still, with that being said, I feel with them having Giannis, that should give them enough just to be a 500 team. And they're still not able to get there. And a lot of that I had to put on Giannis despite having a crappy roster, because they've been guys in their careers when they were in their primes and they didn't have great rosters for a period of time, but they were still able to lead their team to at least a 500 record. Say what you will about LeBron James, but during his first stint in Cleveland, those teams were not great. They were not special. They didn't have any legit all-stars around him, but he could still lead them to the playoffs. I look at Tim Duncan during the early 2000s, right when Dave Robinson had fallen off, and before he got Manu Ginobili and an all-star Tony Parker, he had these rosters with a bunch of old veterans, and he was still able to lead the Spurs to winning 50 or more games. That was amazing. You look at Michael Jordan during the late 80s, before he had a legit team, he was still able to get the Bulls to the playoffs despite not having any legit all-stars around him. So I feel there's just no excuse for Giannis not to get them to at least playing 500 basketball. He has to find some ways to win games for them. I know the numbers are great, but there's something he's not doing that's not allowing them to win these games despite having hardly any talent around him. That he has to find a way. Great players are great not only because they dominate, but they find ways to win games. And that's part of his legacy. I do believe that a player that's as talented as him in his prime, and I still stand by it, he's a top 5 player in this league. You can make an argument, even the best player in the league, just when you compare him to the other guys competing for that spot, just his team's record should be better. It should be at least 500, despite just the bad talent around him. He should at least have a 500 record. I do believe if the Bucks don't make it to the playoffs, this will be a black mark against his legacy. And there's just no way to spin it for him if he misses the playoffs. He's still an all-time great, but I just think it'll be a bad look because he's in his prime. So there's really no excuses for him not to make the playoffs in his prime. Just he's at probably what his peak would be at this point in time. So that's all I have to say.